Welcome to the #1 source for information, news, and opinion on your Columbus Blue Jackets. This is CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. You can also find the audio version on the CBJ Radio SoundCloud page, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Google Play Music, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Now here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Welcome to the Thanksgiving edition of CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. Thankful to be here with you. There's no question about that. I would be more thankful if games are being played. I would be more thankful if we were getting ready for a big game tonight, night before Thanksgiving, gearing things up, big holiday, and then probably back at it on Friday. I mean, so many times I've worked in hockey where, whether it be the National Hockey League, the American Hockey League, the East Coast Hockey League, where we played games on Wednesday and Friday, and that's just a way of life in the business and something you get used to. But this year, like with everything, it is so different. You know, in saying that, I'm just thinking about way back when I first started working in the ECHL, and especially before I was doing radio in Johnstown, and I was the mascot on game nights, and I was the group ticket sales director. The biggest night of the year there was the day after Thanksgiving. And it was very simple to figure out why it was the biggest day of the year, because the Cambria County Youth Hockey League would run a Thanksgiving tournament every year. So they would have, you know, teams from all different ages. They would have the Pee-wees, the Squirts, the Pee-wees, the Bantams. They would all come in. They would all come in for that weekend, and they used the War Memorial for some of their games. Not all of their games. There were a couple of other rinks in town, but they used the War Memorial for games. So even from the time we would get there in the morning, I mean, there would be hockey going on all day long. Youth hockey was going on all day while we were in the office getting, ready for the game that night. And I used to have to book the tickets. So I sold a lot of tickets. It was one of the easiest sells ever, right? The hockey tournament's there. All these teams are coming in from out of town. They've got nothing to do on a Friday night. Hey, there's a pro hockey game in town. It was the best. It was the easiest sellout of the entire year. That's my first experience with the Thanksgiving holidays, really, in pro hockey. There was another time I remember, I think we actually played on Thanksgiving Day. I think we played a game in Wheeling on Thanksgiving Day once I was doing radio, so I had to be at the game. And I'll tell you when it was. I don't know the year. I'd have to look up the year, but I know what happened that day. That was the day that the Steelers played the Lions in the Thanksgiving Day game, and it went to overtime, and Jerome Bettis said he called tails. I think he said he called tails, and they said he called heads or whatever. Anyway, Steelers didn't get the ball first, and the Lions won the game on the first drive of the overtime. So I remember that. And then I had to get in the car and drive an hour and a half to Wheeling for the game that night. Once I was in the American Hockey League, I don't think we played on Thanksgiving Day. I remember leaving home and driving 5 hours to Binghamton on a Friday for the day after Thanksgiving. I remember one year, and it might have been a Wednesday-Friday combination, that basically the entire team went over to the house of the head coach, Gary Agnew, and we all had Thanksgiving together, and that was a lot of fun. That was a great time. So, you know, as you get around American Thanksgiving, I got to say that in this sport, right? But as you get around Thanksgiving and you start to move toward Christmas, it's always a very special time in the league. And now it's a different time. It's no time. There's nothing going on. Everybody's with their family, yes, but they're with their family. You're being told not to travel. In some cases, you're being told to have 5 people or less in your house. And some places being told you got to wear a mask inside the house the entire day. So completely different, absolutely different. But the same in some ways. And I'm going to tell you before the show's over, I'm going to tell you what I'm thankful for. And until then, I'm going to tell you some other things. First thing I'm going to tell you is about a group of people that I am thankful for, and that's the people at Telhio Credit Union. Because thanks to them, I'm able to bring you this show every week, or when we get into the season, a couple times a week, playoffs every day, whatever. but it's thanks to the fine folks over at Telhio Credit Union. And you really should take a look at their website and see the different services that they have and the different things that they provide. Maybe you're looking for a little extra money for the holidays. They have some options for you to be able to get that. Just go to telhio.org, surf around, check out everything that they have to offer. Find out if there is something that they have that you currently don't have. If there's a better way for you to utilize your money, they would love to work with you at Telhio Credit Union. As you go through the site, you can just, as I said, you click on the different tabs. There's a live chat option on the right-hand side of the screen during business hours. Somebody will just pop up on the screen and talk you right through and answer whatever questions that you may have. It's just that simple. It really, really is. So make sure you check them out. Telhio Credit Union. Find them on the web at telhio.org. All right. Speaking of being thankful for things, if you can go back in your mind, for those of you that have been a fan for the Blue Jackets for quite some time, and I say that because I know that there are a lot of new fans. I know there are a lot of people that have come around in just the last couple of years, and that's great. And that's what should happen when you have a team that constantly goes to the playoffs and is expected to win and all of those things. But if you turn it back to February of 2009, the Blue Jackets were in the midst of what would be their first run ever to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They would earn a playoff berth before the end of the year. They would need every point that they could get. And back in February, early February, to be exact, there were 2 days, February 7th and February 10th. The Blue Jackets got two great performances from an unlikely contributor in goal. Dan LaCosta was called up from Syracuse of the American Hockey League. And I remember Danny there. He was a good, solid goalie. But even though he was a third-round pick, was he looked at like a big prospect? He was going to be here. It was only a matter of time. I don't remember it being that way. He was a good goalie, had to earn his stripes and all of those things. And he found himself in a situation that February where there were two goalies that were out. There was an illness. And, well, there were two illnesses, actually. There was one that allowed him to get called up, and then another happened while he was here. And lo and behold, he wound up in net for two very important games. He got 2 wins, helped the Blue Jackets to 4 points, and really turned out to be a big part of them making the playoffs for the very first time. So as we are in this 20th anniversary season, Dan LaCosta is one of my under 20 players. He only played a handful of games with the Blue Jackets, but those 2 games were huge, not only for him, but for the franchise, especially for the franchise, as he helped to lift them to the playoffs. Well, just a few days ago, I had a chance to catch up with Dan LaCosta, tracked him down in New Brunswick. We had a chance to talk all about that experience that he had back in that 2008-2009 season, and also where he is and what he's doing today. So without further ado, here's former Blue Jackets goaltender, Dan LaCosta. Well, Dan, it is so great to talk to you. It's been so long, although for me, some days it feels like it was just yesterday in Syracuse we were having a pregame conversation. But, here we are all these years later. It's the 20th anniversary of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And as you go back through the history of this team, you're a player that only played in a couple of games, but had some really important games for this team. So first of all, can you believe this franchise is 20 years old? And can you believe that you and I are talking for the first time in about 11 years?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like when you, like my parents always used to say that to me when I was younger, like it only seems like it was like a couple of years ago. I kind of left professional hockey to come back to school, and it's hard to believe that, 10 plus years has went by, and I had nice long hair probably back then, and it seems like a different life.
Yeah, a different life indeed. You were drafted by the Blue Jackets out of the OHL in 2004, third-round pick. Of course, it came into the American Hockey League, played there in Syracuse. But it was that season where the Blue Jackets made the playoffs for the very first time, the 08-09 season, where you really got your opportunity to shine. You came up here, it was February, and the Blue Jackets were in a situation where there was already one guy down. I think Steve Mason had been diagnosed with mono, and he was unable to play. right? And then Wayne Dubowitz was the other goalie. So you came up, and I imagine at that time you were figuring, I'll come up and back up for a couple of games and see where this goes. Is that kind of what the mindset was when you first get called up, when you don't know what the heck's going on?
Yeah, it was like that. I felt like that time when I got called up, it was a little bit different than the previous times. Like it was opportune for me just because in the American League, and I felt like I would be ready, like to step in if I needed to. But I definitely, you get called up, and the expectation is that, like, unless somebody gets hurt or something like that, like that's probably the only way I'm getting in. But it was, it wound up being a really good opportunity for a short period of time.
So you go to the morning skate the day you're supposed to play against the San Jose Sharks, and you find out that Dubowitz isn't feeling well. And then as it goes on, you find out that you're going to make the start against the San Jose Sharks. At that point, when you found out you were going to make that start, do you remember where your mind was at that very moment?
But yeah, I couldn't really believe it was happening because, well, you know what it's like for the black aces or the scratches, pregame skate. It's not like a little shakeout in the morning, like you could be out there for about an hour plus. And I think I was on the ice with the goalie coach and assistant coaches and scratches for like maybe an hour and 20 minutes. And I was I was really tired. Like I would never do that the morning if I knew I was playing. And I remember Scott Housen coming down, yelling to the goalie coach at the time because I was bag skating, and get him to tell me to stop because I was in a pretty good rhythm of playing the same way and not overthink it.
So you play that game against the Sharks, and what a game it turned out to be. It turned out to be an overtime game. You get a win. And again, at that point, I mean, we're talking about February. You're starting that stretch. The team, knows that it's had a good season, knows it has a chance to go to the playoffs for the first time. And to get a huge win was really key against the San Jose Sharks. What do you remember most about that game in particular? Is there anything that stands out to you?
I mean, it was so long ago, I think, but a little bit. But it's very disciplined style of hockey. It was very defensive and really solid decor and like commitment from the forwards with back pressure and things. So like they made my job quite easy, like everything was to the perimeter and they let me see everything, and everybody was super supportive, from the coaches to my teammates, and all in it. It was just a really positive experience. Like I felt like I had tons of support from everybody, and like I just wanted to go out and have fun. And I was really because at the time I remember San Jose, they were probably in first place. If not, they were one of the best teams in the league. And parents, if I was playing or not, because I wasn't sure how it was going to go. And but I figured on the way to the game, I called my dad going to the rink and let him know I was playing, because I was like, you know what, if this doesn't go well, I probably will never get to play again anyway. So I might as well tell him. Right?
So you win the game 3-2, and do you remember the big stop you made on Joe Thornton in the overtime?
Yeah, I was lucky, I think, a little bit, because I think the puck rolled up on him a bit, and I just tried to be big, and it was just one of those things, man. It's a game of inches sometimes, and I felt, got some good bounces, and I think shortly after we went down and scored, right, and it's like it could, he scores on that play if I misread it or something, or he gets a full full stick on the shot, like it's a totally different story.
Talking with Dan LaCosta, former Blue Jackets goaltender, and after you got that overtime win against the Sharks, you come back 3 days later to take on the Colorado Avalanche. Now, the Sharks were really good at that time, and it was hard for the Blue Jackets to beat the Sharks, and beating the Avalanche was almost unthinkable at that time in franchise history. It seemed like they always had the Blue Jackets number. But you get the start in that game, and lo and behold, you turn aside 31 shots and post a 3-0 shutout. Is that a game? Is that a moment in your life that you'll always look back on and be particularly proud of, that you got that opportunity and that happened for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, it was one of those things. Like, I felt like the first game, I was just so hopped up on adrenaline, and but you're not really, like, you have a good game and get some good accolades, but you're not really sure if you feel like you belong at that level or not. And after the second game, like, I was still like in a little bit of a pinch me sort of thing, but you start to get a little bit more confidence and maybe feel like like maybe you're not as far off as you might have thought a week before. And like I said, the guys were great, man. And it was one of those things. Like, I still have I've got the puck in my office. I'm just looking over there. That's where my office is. I still got it. And yeah, it's obviously, like, that would have been probably, aside from like when I came back to university and won a national championship, like, I would say the best moment I ever had in hockey would have been that, for sure.
It's funny, now at that time you're in the NHL, I'm still back in the American Hockey League, and you know how it is there. When guys go up, you're rooting for those guys so hard. And then there's another part of you that says, when are we going to get our guy back? Because we need our guy to win games. And it was such a catch-22, because it was so great to see you doing well. And, at the same time, when you're a goaltender, especially, you want to get that guy back. But, you got a chance to see a lot of guys go up and get that opportunity. And so it had to be nice for you to be that guy that everybody was rooting for.
No, yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I definitely felt like that, like all my teammates and coaches and everyone, I felt were happy for me to get the opportunity. And, like, I mean, at the time I was extremely grateful to get it, because I did feel like there were peers around me in the American League that probably deserved an opportunity like that more than I did at the time. Like, they had, like 5-10 years of really good minor league performance, and just for whatever reason never got a crack at it. And I just felt really blessed to get the chance to do it. And it's something that, even though it's like the cup of coffee cliche that everyone says, like, I'm proud that it happened, and something that nobody will ever really be able to take away from you, right? So
I would imagine the hardest part for you had to be that even after those two great games and those 4 important points, that all of a sudden you were told that you were coming back to the American Hockey League. And of course, you hope that when you have success like that, it's going to build and you're going to stay and you're going to get more chances. And as it turned out, not only did you not get a third straight chance, but then you didn't get another chance to play in the National Hockey League. The day they told you they were coming down, that you were coming back down, how do you had, I'm sure you were disappointed, but do you remember that feeling and that disappointment of having to pack that bag and drag it out of the locker room?
Yeah, it sucked. Like, it's because it would have been, honestly, like, for that to happen, like, I would have much rather got, like, pulled the night before, and at least then, like, you have, like, some kind of closure, and you're like, okay, like, I had this opportunity, I dropped the ball, like, I'm going back, I'm gonna earn my way back up. But I also knew at the time, on the terms that I got called up, Mason was healthy and ready to go. Like, I knew I was going back down at some point, right? But like, whether or not they'd bring me back up later on was, like, kind of to be determined. But it was tough. Like, and I think looking back on it right now, like, I was young. I was probably 23, 24. Like, I didn't handle the setback as well as I would have liked to, like, I think I had a bit of a case of the poor me's a bit, and probably should have just, like, kept my nose to the grindstone and let it go behind me and move on. But, like, it is what it is, man. Like, you see it all the time. There's guys like that, like, whether it's an injury or it's not always fair, right? It's just the way the game works.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember the first time I was called up for an extended stint when I filled in for George Matthews here. And I remember being in the hotel room at the Crowne Plaza, And Gary Agnew called me from Syracuse, and he said, "When are you coming back?" And I said, I don't know. Nobody said anything to me. He said, "Hey, don't answer a knock at your door. Don't answer the phone in your room. If they can't find you, they can't send you back." And I do remember going back there. And even though I appreciated that time in the NHL, at that point, I didn't know if I would ever get a chance to come back. And you go back to your old job, and, you know, it's still your old job, but it's harder to do for those first couple of days because you still wish you were in the limelight. You wish you were on the private jet. You wish you were, you know, eating in the press box in between periods for me and all that kind of stuff. So it is hard, but as you said, it's really a good life lesson because it's all about attitude. Kind of whatever you do is about the attitude you take toward it, isn't it?
No, I agree. Like it's, you know, as much as I would have liked to continue playing at that level, like I can look back on it honestly and say, like, when I got sent back down, like, the way that I handled it initially, like, I probably didn't deserve to get called back up in a short period of time. And then the next season, I didn't have a good year, you know, like, and that's the way it goes, right? Like, I mean, the ship can sail pretty quick, and like it's served as a good, because I mean, after that, like, that was my last year pro hockey. I went back to school, you know, so like within like a year and a half, like I was like, felt like I was on the cusp of being a full-time NHL player to like going back to play Canadian University, you know. So like but it was a good, really good life lesson for me. And I think what I took away from that has really helped me in my life after hockey, you know, like I would say I'm a much better person because of it.
Let's talk about your life after hockey. What do you do now full-time? What's your full-time job?
Yeah. So I work for, one of the big Canadian banks. It's called Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, CIBC. We have U.S. branches too. I'm pretty sure we have some in Ohio, but it goes under CIBC U.S. I work in the corporate commercial finance division. So I just actually this week I just took over a new role. Like, I was a account manager or relationship manager for 4 years, and so I just took over a new position this week as a team lead for New Brunswick and PEI, which are the two provinces I cover. So I've got a small team reporting into me, and the segment that I cover off on is called like mid-market accounts. So it's, you know, companies' annual revenues between like 20 and 100 million, and we're doing the transaction sizes like 10 to 50 million. So like, when I came back to school, a lot of the alumni of the hockey team I played for were in finance. So I felt like a lot of ex-athletes they have like a bit of a type A personality and are competitive, and finance seemed to scratch that itch. And I've been working for the bank for 6 years now, and I think a lot of the lessons and things I learned through hockey is kind of helped me accelerate my career probably faster than I would have thought, you know, like a lot of the soft skills and intangibles that you get from playing a professional sport, I think has really helped in the business world.
How many people you work with know that you played in the National Hockey League?
Oh, well, all of them. Yeah, all of them do. But it's not because I told them. It's like, it's just there's nobody else on our team. But like we started in our region. Like, I was kind of like maybe like a guinea pig, I guess, when they hired me as an associate, because I didn't have the traditional background in finance of what they would look for. But it's worked out well. Like, I kind of, like, the lack of technical skills I had at the time, I felt like was offset by the fact that I was willing to work harder and be more disciplined than probably some of my counterparts at the time. So, so since then they've actually hired. Now we've got probably 5 or 6 like either junior or pro or American League or professional league in Europe players, right? Because it's worked out. Like, it's kind of got our leadership thinking a bit outside the box for when we go to hire new people, right?
And you also have a goalie school, right? You still teach hockey, don't you?
Yeah. So that was when I came back to school. the way that it works in Canadian university, if you go right from junior, like a major junior, to what was called CIS at the time, the Canadian Inter-University Sport, you were eligible for kind of like a stipend towards your school costs. Okay, like and that's kind of negotiated by your junior team. Usually enough to like cover your tuition and books and some like, and come back to school, you're not eligible for that anymore, right? So like I was almost 25. I didn't want to go work like a part-time job where I'd make minimum wage, and like because I was taking an accelerated course load at school because I didn't want to be in school until I was like 32 years old. So I needed to have some flexibility. So the coach at the time recommended I start coaching some young goalies in the city and make a little bit of extra money. And I didn't really, honestly, like I didn't really want to do it, but I needed money. So I did it at the time. I've been coaching, I've been running that now for about 10 years. Like it's still going strong. And
besides the technical aspects of goaltending, what's the biggest thing you try to teach kids?
I think like the approach to the game of just trying every time you get an opportunity to get on the ice, like you want to use that as an opportunity to get better. Like don't take, whether it's like a pregame skate or you get 10 minutes with the goalie coach at the start, like you just want to make those small incremental improvements to whatever aspect of your game needs growth every time you get on the ice, you know? So it's, and that's for me, like, was an approach I kind of adopted later in my career, like more when I got to university. Like I did feel like when I was younger, there was probably sometimes I got on the ice, I took it for granted a little bit more. And, but you know, towards when I was playing university, I felt like I was probably playing the best hockey in my whole career with that approach, you know, and it's helped me. I think the reality is like, if I coach one goalie that goes on to play a game of like major junior or like NCAA or pro, like that's gravy. Like I want to I'm more focused on trying to instill them with things that are going to help them when they're done playing. And like, that's an approach I think it's transferable to anything you do, whether it's hockey or business or school or whatever. Right. So.
Well, I think it's great. And I think it's great you're still involved in the game. I think it's great that you're molding young minds like that. I think that's really important. It's just, you know, you're giving back. You're giving back to the game that allowed you, as you just said, it didn't work out the way you wanted to at the NHL level, but it did set you up for the career that you have and being able to make a living for yourself and your family. So I think it's awesome that you're giving back. And I'll tell you what, even though it was only a couple of games here, Dan, there's a lot of people that are going to enjoy hearing from you, and they're going to remember those games that you played for the Columbus Blue Jackets. You were a really important part of helping this team to get to the playoffs for the very first time in its history. Everybody wants to talk about a big Rick Nash goal that was scored that clinched the playoff spot. Listen, if you don't help to get those 4 points in February that year, who knows where the Blue Jackets are. So thank you for taking the time to do this. Again, it is great to talk to you once again. It's, you know, those days in Syracuse, they seemed like they would last forever. They obviously didn't, but here we are talking again and talking about your NHL career. Listen, I wish you nothing but the best of luck in business and in life, and I hope to talk to you again soon, buddy.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. Hopefully it's not another 10-ish years before we talk again. We'll gladly do this anytime, man. Anytime. It was really good to see you too. It's been a while.
Well, it was great to hear from Dan and find out what he's up to. And again, those 2 games that he won that year, absolutely huge. A guy that didn't figure to be part of anything that was going to happen here got forced into a situation. And man, when you talk about making the best of an opportunity, he certainly did. Again, the tragic part of the story is he never got a chance to play after that Colorado shutout. That turned out to be his last game in the National Hockey League. But that's a time that he has. And those are a couple of games that nobody can ever take away. And to finish with the shutout, well, that's pretty impressive. But what he's done with his life since then is very admirable. Going back to Canadian University, winning a championship, getting into the career that he has now, still teaching young goalies. It's a great story. It really is. And it was great to catch up with Dan. Again, one of those guys that in the 20-year history of this team, he only played in a couple of games, but boy, those were a big couple of games. All right. I did get a couple of questions this week. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to hold on to those until next week. There's one in particular that I can do a much better job on next week than I can this week. I mean, I could do a good job, but I want to do a great job. So we'll wait till next week and do that. Again, Thanksgiving, not a lot going on, in the hockey world. There's still negotiating going on between the players union and the owners, and not even really between them. There's discussions going on in the separate groups. The owners are looking for a little bit more from the players because I guess they feel their losses have been even a little bit bigger than they thought they would be back when they negotiated in the summer prior to the playoffs starting. So look, I'm just kind of waiting for it to start to filter its way through. I think it will eventually. Will it in time to get on the ice January 1st? I don't know that. I'm becoming increasingly skeptical. That's the word, skeptical of that date. So we'll see. It could happen, I guess. And, in negotiations, things could all of a sudden break when you're not expecting them to break. But before I go today, I would just like to tell you some things that I'm thankful for, especially in this year when I think we've all done a little bit of introspective reflecting and thought about ourselves and where we are and what's going on, because where we are is pretty much the same place we've been in for months, for crying out loud. But anyway, what I wanted to say was some things that I have thought about being thankful for. At this time of the year, I'm never at home this much. I'm never spending this much time around family. My kids aren't used to me being around as much as I have. As a matter of fact, I've been around so much that one of them actually left and went to start doing his own thing. But again, that's time that I think I've cherished that time. I've learned a lot in that time, in the time that I've been spending here. And, life is about making adjustments, as they say, right? So even though I'm not used to being in one place for this long, I figured out how to do it and gotten some good things, some very good things out of that. Doesn't mean I'm not ready to go back to work, but believe me, I'm ready to go back to work on a regular basis all over North America. The other thing is, I'm really thankful for my friends, and especially now when you don't really see them. Things are a Zoom call, they are a phone call. When I do this show during the regular season, normally, it's very easy to do because I'm always talking with my friends at work about hockey. We're always talking about the Blue Jackets. There's always opinions flying. We would have made this trade. We wouldn't have made that trade. We would have signed this guy. We wouldn't have signed that guy. We would scratch this guy and play this guy instead all the time. I mean, that's what it is. That's what we do. So, being on a bus and having those conversations with Jody Shelley and Jeff Rimmer and all the Fox guys that travel with us too. There's, guys that are behind the scenes and we always talk and we always have great conversations about things that are going on. Brian Filippetti is our Fox Sports Ohio. He's our director. He's always right in there in those conversations with us. Jeff Sabota, the Jackets Insider, is in there with us on it. Donnie DiCaprio, who's our video guy, he gets in on those conversations. He's the newbie in the bunch, by the way. And we were just getting him right to be, just how we wanted him to be. And then everything stopped. But I'm kidding, Donnie. I'm kidding. But you miss your friends. I really do miss my friends. And maybe you feel the same way, whether it's people you work with or, maybe some civic group that you're involved with that you're not getting to do. So I've become more thankful for my friends during this whole time because I just don't see them and talk to them as much. And that sucks, quite frankly. It does. But the other thing I'm really thankful for is I'm thankful for all of you, fans of the Columbus Blue Jackets, fans of the NHL, fans of hockey. And I'm thankful for you because of just the feedback that I get from the shows and the interviews when when I say I'll take your questions, I get questions. I get good questions. I really appreciate it. And through these trying times where there's no hockey being played, and there's been very little hockey played in the last 8 months, let's be honest, you're there and you continue to stay there. And it just constantly reminds me of your love for the game, love for this franchise, and you're being very, very patient, and I appreciate it. I'm very thankful for all of you. Because of you, I get to do what I do, and I couldn't be more thankful for anything in the world. So thank you very much for that. Speaking of questions, next week, if you'd like to send a question to get on the show, you can either send it to me via Twitter at BobbyMacSports, or you can record a voice memo or a video on your phone and just email it to me, BobbyMac, BOBBYMAC, at BlueJackets.com. Very simple and easy to do. So we'll do this again next week. But in the meantime, I want to say have a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. Thank you for being here, not just today, but all the time. And thank you for your support of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Until next time, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.